Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Girl, Let's Be Honest. It's a solo dolo episode. I know it's been a really long time since it's just been me and you, and I'm actually really excited to sit down and just chat with you guys and catch up and really go over some of the really profound things that I have discovered in the last couple weeks. So I actually have been going through quite a bit. We went on vacation to Mexico, and then when I came back, my Chihuahua Lulu, she was like so sick. And then Masha, the baby, she's been just awfully sick for the last week. And then now Aspen has caught whatever she has. I took Lulu in for her yearly exam, and she just turned 10, and they found a heart murmur. So I'm like terrified of that, and we're going to have to do some blood work to see if it's heart disease, and if it comes back, we're going to have to take her to a cardiologist and do testing to find out what kind of heart disease she has so we can get her on medication. It's really hard for me to think about her getting older and having health issues. She's always been perfect. Like the random upset stomach every now and again. But it is really traumatizing to me if something awful is going on. I'm really hoping it can just be managed with medications if that's the case. Lulu's been my road dog. She's literally been through it all with me. I got her when I was 26. I'm obviously 36 now. She's 10. And we've moved and gone through breakups and deaths and all sorts of stuff together. So it is a tough pill to swallow. Definitely. Thank God that Masha's getting better though, because that was really bad. It was really hard for me to leave her and just watch her be so sick on the camera and like have no energy. And hopefully Aspen, we can bounce her back a lot faster because we do have like the right type of food to help with their gastroenteritis, which is what they have. So hopefully we can get her to bounce back a lot faster because we just put her on that food. I had a pretty interesting epiphany, and this is a subject that's kind of hard for me to talk about because for me to think of my dad in any other way than like my best friend, like my ride or die, the man that raised me, he's on a pedestal because he has passed away. It is so hard for me to logically think about things that I went through as a kid, situations I was put in that were very unsafe, the fact that he was an alcoholic. I met with my therapist and we were doing my intake form. We were doing the intake questionnaire, and she was getting to know me and she was asking me all these really fantastic questions that I don't think I have had anybody really go that into depth with me before in like a get to know me first intake appointment with a therapist. And I came out feeling like, fuck. I was definitely verbally, emotionally, and physically abused as a child. That is probably why a lot of my childhood is blacked out. I remember a little bit. I don't remember a lot. I remember getting smacked across my face, smacked up upside my head. I remember throwing tantrums in Albertsons, and my dad would leave me in the parking lot and say, "I'm just going to leave you here if you don't stop." And then when I would like hyperventilate and do all of those things, he would just take off and he would like drive out of the parking lot and then up on the street and around and like come back and basically be like, "Did you learn your lesson?" And when I thought he left me, and I'm talking like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, would do that. He would drink and drive, physically drink, a mixed drink while driving me and my sisters. Um, he would tell us, "Shut the fuck up," constantly, like, be mean to us. There was a time when I became, like, a preteen, like 12, 13, 14, when I would start yelling back, and that was about the time that he quit drinking. And so he changed a lot after he quit drinking. He calmed down a lot, and he would still get really frustrated because I was a wild child, but I started, like, bullying him back, and I never knew why I did that. I always wondered, like, why was I so mean? And going through that intake appointment, I realized that these are all behaviors that I learned from him. This was the way he treated me growing up, and I flipped the script and I started treating him like that. It honestly it honestly makes me feel really bad because I didn't knowing that those were his final days, and that's how I was treating him, makes me feel like a piece of shit. She asked me questions like, what was our family dynamic? Is there what types of mental health or substance abuse runs in my family? And on my mom's side, there's like bipolar disorder. My oldest sister has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I have my own thoughts and feelings about that. She definitely has her mental health issues. I just think she's been misdiagnosed because there are certain characteristics that she displays that I don't think she knows. So she hasn't been able to tell them. And so I think, I'm going to tiptoe around that. But I just think she's been misdiagnosed. So there's mental health there. My dad was an alcoholic. That's really hard for me to admit, but I said he was like a functioning alcoholic. And she said he died. He died from cirrhosis of the liver. He is textbook alcoholic. And I was like, it's hard for me to accept that because once he found out his liver was enlarged, he quit drinking. Like just like that, he just quit. And so it's hard for me to label him as an alcoholic. Um, it's hard for me to admit that he abused us as children. I can't even remember the last time he actually like physically like hit or slapped me. I don't know when that was, but I do remember it a lot as a kid. And my mom is a drug addict. My grandma and her mom was an alcoholic. She was adopted, so there isn't really any genetic factor there, but I mean environmental for sure. I kind of was going on these side quests as I was explaining, addiction running through my family. All of my uncles on my dad's side are alcoholics. Or I'm sorry, they're all drug addicts. They're just addicts. And I was like, "Oh yeah, my mom is adopted," and I never really spent a lot of time with her biological mom, but I was told that when I was pretty little, me and my sisters were actually kidnapped by that lady. And so I'm not sure like what kind of psychological trauma that did for us. I'm not sure if we realized that that's what was happening when it happened, but we did get kidnapped by her until my dad got back from hunting. I'm just trying to think of all the different questions she asked. I went, she's asking, have you tried this drug? Have you tried this drug? Have you tried this drug? And yes, I said yes to every single question. I was a gambling addict. All of the things, I suppose. But I just thought it was really interesting getting into the family dynamic and how we all lived with my grandma. And my grandma was this big enabler because there was no consequences or boundaries. She would just let you be there no matter what. And I was kind of hoping that my therapist could have sent me, like, the list of questions because it's been a week since I had that appointment, and the questions are no longer, like, fresh in my mind, but as soon as I was, like, going through, 55 minutes of my history, I thought, "Oh my god, this would be such a good podcast episode," because I never really realized how traumatic my childhood was. It was always so normal for me. My mom used to, like, take a belt to me when I would get in trouble. I remember when she got out of prison and it was, like, her weekend for us, I would hide from her because I didn't wanna leave my dad. If she would find me, I would hyperventilate and cry. It was really traumatic, I think, um, just imagining that as, like, my daughter going through that, I don't think I would have allowed it. There was a lot of things that I don't agree with my mom and her part-time parenting, I guess. She would force us to go to church and to Sunday school, and it just was not for me. I didn't enjoy doing that. I don't think that we should have been forced to do that. She knew that's not how my dad was raising us, and he was our primary parent. I think it's just a hard pill to swallow knowing that, like, I was gonna say, like, we were never put in harm's way, but we were. I mean, the verbal abuse itself is like, it's awful just to think about, and all the different situations. Trying to explain the dynamic that, like, my dad and my stepmom were together for a very long time. I think I was 4 years old when they started dating. My stepmom is also an alcoholic. We moved in with her when I was 12. I obviously have mommy issues, and me and her always butted heads. I mean, she called the police on me. I would scream at the top of my lungs. I would throw things. I would break things. She I felt as though she would just berate me. Like, she would just yell at me and fight with me, and I was just like a 12-year-old kid who was brought up in the chaos and yelling and, like, an unsafe home. I mean, until I was 12, I lived with drug addicts who were in and out all night long. I slept in a bed in the kitchen. Like, I was not in a safe environment. I wasn't in my own space. These people were doing drugs, selling drugs, whatever, right outside the kitchen door in the garage, coming in and out. I mean, I just think back and I'm like, no wonder I turned out the way that I did. But I love my dad so much, and, like, I really wish he was still alive today. I think we definitely would have a good relationship. I would take him to do a lot of things that I never got an opportunity to take him to do. I would, like, have weekly dinners with him. But it is hard to sit back and reflect on, like, how traumatic my childhood was, and, like, I always wondered why my sister Robin had such a great memory, and I actually called her when I got out of therapy, and I was like, "Dude, I just got done with my therapist, and, like, we had such traumatic childhoods." And she's like, "No, your experience is not my experience. You" She always says it's because I was a crack baby and my dad just didn't know how to handle me, and she always knew when to shut up, so she never got hit. That was her sentence to me. She said, "I always knew when to shut up so dad wouldn't hit me," which I don't know if she realizes is also, like, a form of trauma. And I was just thinking, I think we've let a lot of our experience our no, I think we've let because my dad has died, I think we have put all of the bad stuff in the back and only focus on the fact that we miss him so much. And it's really a disservice to ourselves, to myself. It is a disservice to me to only think about the good times and not work through all the traumatic shit. I was also sexually abused by one of my mom's boyfriends when I was pretty young. I suppressed that memory until I think I was like 25. And I was trying to think about like when it happened, what was going on. I know that I was in a swimsuit. I know that there was water around. So I always thought it was my stepdad because we rode a lot of jet skis with him when they weren't in prison. And I was talking to her about it when she was in prison. And I was like, I just had this flashback of this time when this happened. And she came to the realization that it was one of her boyfriends before she met my stepdad. So I just feel like I was failed constantly. I was put in dangerous situations. My dad smoked in the car when he drove. He drank in the car while he drove. I've done my best to like raise Sophia outside of the environment that we were both raised in. And I can't imagine treating her any other way. And I do know that if I was under the influence of anything, that would probably be different. So my hope for going through therapy and really digging into this and working through the trauma, and probably I'll probably uncover a lot of memory that I don't quite remember. If I'm really, really excited for the healing and for the growth and for the understanding. And it's just kind of a bummer because I always joked about growing up in a crazy house and everybody being on drugs, but I finally it's concrete in my head how fucked up it was. Having younger half siblings, one of them I don't even have a relationship with, nor would I want one with. Having, my stepmom, my stepbrother, the dynamic, the childhood, I don't want to get too hung up on it because I don't want to feel super down about it, but I do feel like I was robbed. I was robbed of a good childhood of being a kid. I do remember when we lived in the first house that we lived in, always playing, always being outside, hanging out with all of my cousins all of the time, riding scooters up and down the street, playing with the neighbor kids. I do remember that. I remember that being a really great time, but there was also a lot of yelling and chaos and abuse, and it's this weird mixture. And it's I almost just only remembered the good parts until I was older and I couldn't ignore the other parts. And when we moved in 2000, I mean, that was really when the drugs took over everybody. But I think that maybe the drugs were always there. I don't quite remember, of course. And I was too young, I think, at the time. But I really don't have that many memories from my young childhood, 5, nothing before 5, obviously, but 5 to 10, my memories are pretty small. And I do try to think about stuff and I do try to pull memories, but it's really hard sometimes. And then there was this dude, when I was 10 and we had moved, my friend lived at the end of the street. We lived on one end, they lived on the other. And we would walk that street all the time. And we would walk it in the dark. It was not a big deal. And I remember it being kind of late, I think 10 p.m. I mean, that's late for a 10-year-old to be walking. And I was going to go home. And Brittany was going to come stay the night. That was my friend. And her brother said, okay, well, I'll walk you halfway. And he had a flashlight. It wasn't like a super well-lit street. And he walked us halfway and we kept walking. And then all of a sudden we saw like a flashlight flashing towards us. So we thought, oh, it's Chris. What does he want? We walked back. The light was shining right in my face. And I said, Chris, what are you doing? And this older guy said, who's Chris? And we were like taken aback. And I was like, her brother. And he was like, what are you girls doing out so late? And I was like, going home. And he said, not anymore. You're coming with me. And I learned in that moment that when you fight, flight, or freeze, I freeze. Brittany ran. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I was so afraid. I saw a car pull from the side street. And honestly, it was like a 50-50 gamble because if he was trying to kidnap us, that might have been his friend. But I ran up to that car and I said, there's a guy over there. He's trying to kidnap us. I just live at the end of the street. And he gave us a ride home. And I remember coming in and I was hysterical. And I was telling my dad what happened. And he got mad at me for getting in the car with a stranger. I will literally never fucking forget that. He got mad at me. I didn't have many fucking choices. It's just ridiculous. That I've always been a little salty about. I mean, that's fucking traumatic. 10 years old. I'm like so grateful that I never got kidnapped. And I'm here, alive, to tell you about it. I think that's a huge reason why I never let Sophia like take the bus, or I'd always give her a ride or made sure she had a way. Gosh, I really wish I had that fucking list of questionnaires because it was so good. It was so thorough and in-depth. And it made me realize that, like, I don't think I'm depressed. I think I can get a little bit of anxiety. I think I definitely have a lot of grief I need to funnel through and work through. I need to work through my childhood trauma. I need to have a more realistic reality when it comes to my dad. Well, I already know exactly how I feel about my mom, my stepmom, my childhood. I do need to like get a better grip on the reality of that, which I'm excited to work through. I will say that I haven't really wanted to talk about her too much because she doesn't really consume a lot of my life, but my mom, I do not have any kind of attachment to her. She smoked crack until her water broke. My dad got custody of me immediately. She told me over the phone, do you know what it's like to not be able to hold your baby after you've given birth? As an adult, that is your consequence for using drugs your entire pregnancy with a baby. For the hospital to protect that baby from you because you have abused that baby for 9 months. When she told me that, I was so furious. That is what you get. I have struggled a lot with like forgiving her, having resentments, allowing her in my life. I have a very big boundary. I do not let my stepdad in my life. That is my boundary. Any chance that motherfucker gets, he tries to break my boundary. He does not respect it at all. Any moment he can attempt to say hello to me, he will. And I have said so many times, I do not want him to even look at me or attempt to fucking say hi. It enrages me that he does not respect that. She is just a human being in this earth. She's just a human being that lives in the state of Oregon. I do not miss her. I will like randomly get the urge to call her and like ask her a question. I don't really speak to her. She follows me on social media. She comments on my stuff. We live different lives. I have allowed her to come to the important moments in my life for her, but not for me. It does not matter to me one way or the other. I don't feel like happiness when I see her. I don't feel sadness when I don't. That is going to come off very, very awful. I realize that. I do know that that sounds really mean. And I told her, if you watch my podcast and you hear something about you that hurts your feelings or you don't like, this is my experience. And I was already robbed of so much because of your selfishness. Actually, I never said this to her, but this is a good time to say this. I was robbed of so much due to her selfishness and her addiction. And I know it's a disease, but I am taking, this is my life and I will allow what I will allow, but it is not for me. It does not fill a hole that I've had. I just think she has suffered a lot of loss. She's missed a lot. And so, yeah, if I'm graduating dental hygiene school, if I'm, doing this, I invited her over for the holidays one year. I will do that. Because I know it makes her happy. And I'm hoping that at some point it'll heal a little bit within me. But I'm also hoping that maybe therapy will do that too. I think it'll be good for me. I think the only adult that ever raised me or was ever in my life that never hurt me, never abused me, always loved me unconditionally was my grandma. And I miss her a lot. And I'm so glad that like I was able to be clean when she passed away and I was able to hold her hand and lay on the floor next to her and do all those things. She was like this very beautiful, ornery, opinionated lady. She was so cute. She loved to watch sports. She loved to play bingo. She was a big gambler. She grew up on the Umatilla Reservation in Pendleton. She lived in poverty. People were fucking racist against her. I fucking loved her. She was the best. I fucking loved her. Any chance I could get, I would go home to see her, no matter what was going on. Lived with her for a long time. I lived with her mostly through my addiction, too. I would say she's the only one who was really looking out for me. I think my dad was like very obligated to take care of us, but I mean, you just heard the first 30 minutes of this podcast, so you know how rough that was, but I think it does make me feel like really guilty to say those things about him. It makes me want to cry right now. Like I need you guys to know that like I loved him so much. I miss him so much. He would be like my number one supporter with this fucking podcast. He would also say some like pretty fucked up shit to me. Like if I ever brought like a black person home, he would disown me. He was super homophobic, super like pretty racist. He was not outwardly racist, definitely behind closed doors. I'm really grateful that like I'm not that way and that I grew up in a generation where like we knew that that shit was not okay. Sorry, it's just really hard to like think back to all of that. I do wonder like what he would think about me marrying a woman and a woman of color. Oh yeah, speaking of that, I'm wearing red. It's Lunar New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. I ate dumplings and noodles today. My fiance went to the temple to light incense for us because I had to work. I love the Lunar New Year. I'm really bummed that we can't go back to San Francisco to spend time with her family right now. We're gonna make it up in a little bit though to see them. Anyway, I can't wait to share like my therapy journey with you guys. I think that that's going to be really helpful for me. I have done therapy in the past, but I am like really just focusing this therapy on me, not a relationship, not anything else, not my addiction. This is just for me and all of the shit that I have collected over the years that I've shoved away or blacked out or whatever. This will be really good for me. The little life update I didn't know you guys needed. I am curious as to whether you guys like my solo episodes better than my guests. I have been having a really good time with my guests. I really, really, really have enjoyed people come on and talk about their stories and share. And I realized that I was gone, just you and me, for too long. And I definitely like just want to share my experience with you and like make sure that you know that if you also had a fucked up childhood, like you are not alone. It doesn't have to define you. It can affect you, and then later on you can heal from it. There are ways. I encourage you, if therapy is something that you've been thinking about or not thinking about, that right now listening to this podcast has made you think, oh my gosh, I should probably do that. Please do. Please reach out. Our mental health is so important. Okay. So I think for that, we'll wrap up this little trauma dump of an episode. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. So please send this to your friends. Let me know what you think in the comments. Not a lot of people do comment. I realize that like maybe people are listening on Spotify and they can't comment, or Apple Podcasts. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but like jump over to the YouTube. You don't even really have to like watch the whole thing if you don't want to. I don't know. I know that I prefer my method of podcast just audio, but I know a lot of people do like to watch it too. So I really appreciate all the support. Go follow me on my socials if you don't. And I will see you next week. Oh, there's Lulu. Come here, Lulu. Oh, say hi. Come here. Will you guys please pray for Lulu, because I really hope she doesn't have any kind of heart disease. I love her so much. Look at how cute she is. We got her sombrero when we were in Mexico. Can I have a kissy? Oh, the cold shoulder. Can you believe that? She's crying right now. What are you crying about? Okay. Anyway, we'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.